Welcome to the Week 14 edition of Johnny's Intangibles. I'm Collin Wilson. Joining me today, as he does every Monday, is Johnny Manziel to talk about the latest that's happening in college football, particularly in a wild college football Week 13. But we always start off with the MVP of the week. Johnny, thanks for joining me. One of the wildest weekends saw Cam Skatebo do all kinds of things for Arizona State. 28 carries, 147 yards, and 3 TDs. The OU defense went crazy on Alabama, got the upset victory there. But Johnny, who is going to be your MVP of the week?
Yeah, Kansas running back Devin Neal this week played unbelievable. 37 carries is an absolute workload for 207 yards, 3 touchdowns. Then he adds another 4 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown. This is just an absolute workhorse of a day for him against, a Colorado team that was definitely surging, definitely trying to, whittle their way back in. This is the MVP performance of the week, hands down.
Yeah, and Kansas making it to bowl season. I'm telling everybody out there, this will be the most bet on team in college football in bowl season if the Jayhawks are able to pull it off and get there. Let's go to talk about how many upsets that we had over the weekend. 7 of the top 25 teams lost in Week 13. Their college football playoff hopes have just been completely crushed. We could sit here and diagnose whether it's bad for this team, bad for that team. I think what you're looking for as a gambler this week is which teams sort of unplug and those players start thinking about the future. Alabama, Ole Miss, Colorado, they all come to mind. Which one of those teams do you think the players start maybe thinking about the NFL draft and not so much about bowl season?
I mean, I think you're probably going to see it from all three, to be honest. I think you're going to see it from a lot of teams around the league or around college football as well that, really didn't get to where they wanted to throughout the season. And they're going to have to, have some of their best guys get ready and prepare for draft season, as we've seen, kind of year in and year out over the past couple.
Yeah, we'll see if Shadur and Dion make their way down to Dallas to be a part of the Cowboys organization. That should be a fun, hot topic. Indiana did not cover against Ohio State. Two-loss Tennessee smashed their layup of UTEP 56-0, and SMU just never left it out when they went and played Virginia. Out of Indiana, Tennessee, and SMU, which one of those would you pick to still be included in the college football playoff this week?
Really, I think I'm probably looking at Tennessee that's still going to probably be included. I think SMU has done enough, obviously, to be in there as well. Indiana, we'll see how the committee kind of looks at, that game against Ohio State and first real big test like that for them this year. But, if I'd have to say anybody out of that group, I'm definitely looking at Tennessee and SMU. I think SMU has been, extremely, extremely impressive at the times they need to be.
Yeah, it should be interesting to hear if the selection committee mentions of teams ever covering or not covering. They never will, but that's how I would grade Indiana. So Tennessee, you mentioned Tennessee. That's the team that you would pick out of here. Got a huge boost by Florida beating Ole Miss. It essentially should improve Tennessee enough to get them off the bubble into the college football playoff. And then you see their fans are doing the Florida Gator chomp. Johnny, this blows my mind. Would you ever, in any world, in any planet, at any time, see the Aggies throwing up a hook'em gesture ever?
You're never going to see it from the Aggie fan base or anybody in that sort. But, Tennessee definitely wanted and needed the help a little bit. So I guess in this, moment, maybe it's acceptable, but you're definitely never going to see it from the Texas A&M faithful. That's for sure.
Yeah, and don't I don't want any other fan bases doing a woo pig suey, so don't even try it. But you know what? We'll never make the playoff. We have to talk about you, Johnny, in Jordan Hare Stadium, October 27th, 2012. You totaled 5 touchdowns, 5 all-purpose touchdowns that day. Nick Saban has talked often about how Jordan Hare Stadium is a haunted place. It wasn't haunted for you. So let's talk about Texas A&M. Easily an overlooked game to Texas, easily a game where maybe the game planning was more about Texas than it was about Auburn, maybe not being prepared emotionally to go into that. What is it about Auburn? Was it just the spot? Was it Auburn how they played? Is Jordan Hare actually a haunted stadium for visitors to come to?
I think Jordan Hare is obviously a tough place to play. We didn't have any trouble with it back then, but since then you have seen some spooky ass things that have gone on in that stadium. And I think it's just a tough place to play with a, really good fan base behind them. And I think for Texas A&M this week, you just get down early in the whole game. You kind of spend yourself climbing and kind of crawling back into the equation, and then it gets to the point where you get into overtime and you have a chance to just kind of keep this thing going, and you don't make the plays that you need to. I thought, giving up the defensive touchdown they did in the third overtime on the 2-point conversion, and then you have a chance to get it right back, and you end up having a costly, easy drop. Just wasn't the Aggies' day, and even though they still have the opportunity to go and beat Texas and get to where they want to be, this is one that I look at as a real disappointment for sure.
So Texas, so we're going to move on to another team in the state of Texas. Texas Tech had a 2% post-game win expectancy against Oklahoma State. They had no business winning that game, but they did. During the game, Taj Brooks lines up in Wildcat, breaks one off, has an explosive touchdown. But before he gets to the goal line, he decides to high five a teammate. Johnny, is this acceptable behavior of doing anything celebratory before you get to the goal line?
I mean, I've always been a big component of cross the end zone and then kind of do what you want. But we're in a different era of college football right now where guys are going to celebrate and do some things. So as funny as it was to see, you probably got to kind of handle business first before you go into the celebratory mode. But not a bad high five altogether.
Now we have to talk about what was potentially the biggest scene in college football the entire season. Down in Tempe, Arizona State did some pretty wacky stuff, running the ball backwards, chucking the ball as high as possible in the air, trying to run out the clock. Kenny Dillingham absolutely lost his shit. So at the biggest moment of all the college football season, he's waiting on a call to see if BYU is going to get one more play. Johnny, on a meltdown scale of 1 to Gundy being 40 years old, rate Kenny Dillingham's reaction to the review of the final play that gave BYU another chance.
Look, this is up there with the top of them. This is a 9 or a 10 all day. I mean, he really, really went nuts and went after this, and they were trying and scheming every single way they could to get every single bit of time off that clock. And then see him put 1 second back on. You got half the student section still on the field, just kind of a bunch of chaos. But he didn't take this. He didn't take this very well whatsoever.
Yeah, more looks like Kenny was upset with himself than he was with the referee coup. All right, Johnny, thanks for joining me. That's going to do it for this week's edition of Johnny's Intangibles. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, buddy.